dating itself here in America is totally changed. I think from when I got here,
Yeah.
and obviously when you've been here.
Yeah.
How would you say it's changed over the years?
Well, I'd say it's monetized. It's overtly monetized.
Pay to play, huh?
It's pay to play. They can disguise it however the ladies want to say it, luxury dating. They describe it as a whole bunch of things, but they're entitled to this. They're like, hey, listen, this is how we want to be courted. This is how we want to be romanticized. This is how you build us to be more secure. All of that is monetization, and they monetize it in a variety of ways. So it could be money. It could be the amount of attention you spend, the amount of time that you spend. At the end of the day, it's overtly monetized.
So I made a discovery a couple weeks ago myself where I saw girls showing purity on Instagram, right? But it's funny. You go to their link in bio.
Right.
They have a Twitter. They got a Snapchat. And I'm like, let me go see what's happening there. Bro, I kid you not. I was fooled for a second.
Right.
Because I saw purity on Instagram. I was like, okay, cool. Modest. Not too crazy.
Yeah.
But on Twitter, it was the Wild West. It was insane, bro. Bikinis, half naked. I'm like, what the fuck? But if you didn't click link in bio, you would never know.
You would never know. But I think, this conversation's been here for a while. Myron's even talked about he wants his girl to delete the Instagram, right? So what was that, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah.
Right. Now think about how much that's
Or it's got to be
changed.
private, bare minimum.
It's got to be private. So,
Bare minimum,
but think about that now. These women can't live without it.
Yeah.
And they would rather trade a possibility of a relationship. They're not going to delete the Instagram. They're like, well, forget it. You know what I mean? But that was the best possible relationship presented to them. So at this point, they
Or
can
at least have a login. Like, you got to be able to control it is my point. Like, my point.
So
right?
you would have
With
to
the
be able
dude,
to control it.
Yeah.
Right. So how many women are going to be able to do that today?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So
Yeah,
you
most girls won't let you control their shit at all.
Exactly. Why? Because they get attention from it. They
Absolutely.
get be able to monetize themselves.
And options too.
Yeah, and options.
Yeah.
So it's difficult because when we were doing, like last time I was here, we're talking about millennials having problems with dating. Now you got to remember this. It's coming back full circle. So Gen Z, we're talking about 17-year-olds to 25-year-olds, really. And they're being introduced to all of the stuff we've already talked about over the last few years with the Gen X and millennials. So these guys are like 22, 23. They were like 17 when we started talking. So they weren't listening to us, but they're now experiencing, what the hell do we do with this beast? And I said, Gen Z guys will be the first generation that will have to deal with their girls being monetized, right? They got a TikTok, they got an OnlyFans, and the guys have to date. They have to consider dating girls with those things. We never had to do that.
I would argue nowadays with the advent of social media, though, and TikTok itself, you get clues and information about the girl beforehand. So, for example, you go to her TikTok, she's talking about her last relationship, why it failed, why she got ghosted.
True.
She's telling you about herself in real time. So there's a benefit to it as well, but also downsides, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say I agree with that the Gen Z guys are going to have to deal with monetized women. And I would say, like, for us, it was monetized on the low.
Correct.
For them, now it's going to be monetized overtly. Like, it's going to be to a point where in the next 10 to 15 years, a guy might get with a girl, marry her, whatever. Then he finds out later on that his girl used to be a sugar baby, or she used to be an IG thought, or she used to sell feet pictures or whatever. And that's kind of where we're going, where women are overtly sexualizing themselves for monetization. Whereas, like, before, growing up, chick might strip, but nobody knows.
Nobody knew.
She might have a sugar daddy, but it was on the low, like nobody knew. So they moved a lot more quiet. But now with the internet, and also because we have kind of mainstreamed it for girls to be promiscuous and to make money off of men, it's mainstream now. And OnlyFans has shown that. You get girls that are wildly successful. We had an Amaranth then.
Yeah.
She made $70 million on OnlyFans.
Bro.
So you got to
Incredible.
imagine, if you're a young woman, you see that. Why wouldn't you take that route?
Exactly.
So they're going, and listen, I know a lot of young ladies, they're now 23, 24, 25. When they told me when they were 18, they signed up. You know what I mean? Like they did. So you're right. A lot of women are going to try it, at least, or they're going to sell some feet pictures. They're going to have a sugar daddy.
Absolutely.
So now the guys have to deal with that in their past, whereas before, I stripped, I had to pay my way through college. That was the old thing. I had to pay my way through college. You understand? But today, the strippers are doing it to make money. They're not paying.
I find it funny. Even Amaranth herself said that women shouldn't do this at the very beginning, especially because you're not making any money.
Right.
She's a special occasion, but with them, bro, you may make what less than $1,000 if you
they're
try.
not gonna make that much
and
money.
they're doing the
They
most.
average $100 a month.
Yeah,
something like that.
And they're doing the most.
Yeah.
Smashing on camera, doing everything, and it's
Yeah.
that's how you're getting paid.
Yeah.
So is it worth it? No. But I'll tell you this though, it's even more discreet. You know what they do as well?
What's that?
Premium Snapchat.
Right.
So I'm
Yeah,
like,
you got
hold
that.
on. Okay, no OnlyFans. This is great. No X. Awesome. But Snapchat, they sell videos on the low and they make bank. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, they can sell it on the low. They can go on the sugar daddy site, and so that's all they're going to do is sell pictures to guys that want pictures, and so they don't want to have that digital footprint. Because listen, I'm in Las Vegas. I mess with some girls. These girls, if I take their picture and run a reverse image search,
bro,
it is crazy what pops up. I mean, I've had girls come up and they did the whole BDSM. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. And I'm not talking about very older women. These are 18, 19, 20-year-old women. They already have a digital footprint. So the problem is they're going to want to be enticed by the money. I mean, I would, like, you know, if I play ball, I see somebody sign $70 million, I'm going to go up there and go shoot, you know what I mean? But they're doing the same thing of that. The problem is they're going to burn out 20, 21, 22, right? So the majority of them going to burn out. They're going to flame out, make $1,000 and get their pop all over the damn country getting flown in. Now what's going to happen? Somebody's going to marry them. But that footprint's going to be there.
That's dangerous.
So, Coach, you're a bit older than us, a bit more experienced and refined. You're in your 40s, right?
49, man.
49.
I'm about to be in my 50s, bro.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So,
Damn, that nigga old.
Yeah, old. Old head ass nigga.
Damn.
I've reached old head status.
well, here's the thing. A lot of wisdom, and I want to ask you this.
Yeah.
Can you kind of go through the decades of how dating has shifted from, let's start maybe the 90s
Yeah.
into the 2000s, the 2010s,
To now.
and to now? And we could just go through a decade, because this is because
Great
I don't meet many guys that are red pill aware that reach your age.
Yep.
So I really want to know someone that has that red lens. You can kind of tell me the cultural and dating differences each decade.
Let me tell you something why that's important.
Yeah.
Because people hear, oh, in the 90s it was better, in the 2000s, right? You hear about that and people romanticize that. But we all had our issues as well.
Of course.
Now, down the line, you got to take Gen Z or a young millennial. They don't know shit. They this is their reality.
That's all they know.
And they know hyper-feminist women, masculine women. They know women kind of playing both sides. They want a guy to take care of them, but then they want to be independent. We didn't have this thing. So I was born in the mid-'70s. You got the '80s. They had a song called "Ain't Nothing Going On But the Rent." No romance without finance. That was in the '80s. Okay?
Really?
Yeah, that was in the '80s.
So you're a kid hearing this.
So, yeah, you were a kid hearing this, and it was like, okay, woman's going to take half your money in divorce, right? That was on Eddie Murphy, Raw or Delirious. So, no romance without finance, ain't nothing going on but the rent. So, there was a little bit of this conversation going on, and the ladies would be like, yeah. But the problem is women didn't make as much money as men.
Okay.
Like, the corporate world wasn't like these boss babes.
There was still that expectation of the man being the breadwinner.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're going to be the
So that
breadwinner.
makes sense.
So there was like 80-20. 20% of women could go that way, but the majority of women were like, hey, you know what I mean? I'm going to need a man to take care of myself financially. So if you were out here single, you were out here struggling.
So this strong independent bullshit wasn't a thing in the 80s.
It wasn't that thick. It
Okay.
was starting to happen, but the majority of women hadn't latched on.
Gotcha.
The 90s, you start seeing it a lot more, right? Queen
Now,
Latifah.
in the 90s, you're old enough to date now, right? At this
Yeah,
point?
in the 90s,
okay.
I'm dating.
So I
And
want to,
in
yeah.
90, 93, I'm 18.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, 93, I'm 18. I'm in college.
What was that like?
So it still was women were in love. There was a time where the woman was sprung on you. You know what I mean? Like you were with her. She was your girl. You still had BS. You know, you still had cock blocking ass, dirty macking ass. You know, you still had the BS.
Yeah.
But it was still women were looking to get married. They wanted to have a family.
R&B times.
What's that?
R&B times.
R&B times, yeah. You talking about Jodeci and, you know, women would sit around. You could call the little TV show, the radio show, I dedicate my song to my girl. There was still that sense of relationships one-on-one were possible. Now, most guys here, they wanted to be like, everybody got a girl. Not really, not everybody got a girl. You still had to introduce yourself, cold approach, run game. You could do that. But I think the advantage...
Would it be fair to say it was a requirement back then?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no other option. You
There
have
was
to do
no
that.
digital.
Yeah.
You got to walk up and get the phone number. You had to have the pen and paper or remember the phone number. And then you had to go back and decipher the phone number if she wrote it. Okay, is that an 8? Is that a 9? And you dial 158 times to make sure you get that number. And then you call her. And then you still had the games like, okay, I'm going to wait 2 days to call her back. Or you hit the answer
I'm going to put a pin in
machine.
that one because I got to ask you about that one later on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you still had to have game, mouthpiece. But I think the advantage was to the men. And so when you look at where women are, they don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
Because you could have a rotation. You could cheat on her. You could cheat on her without knowing. Like that type of stuff. But that was the 90s. You still could get a girl, and the girl will want to be with you. But of course, if she was good looking, extremely good looking, monetized, they were looked upon as them girls over there. Them over there. Yeah, like they kind of out there.
Yeah.
You know, there were girls still with the. You know, I lived in Los Angeles, so Southern Cal. So I had the Lakers, the Raiders, the Rams. Everybody was out there. At the end of the day, it was only a small percentage of girls that were doing that type of lifestyle.
Got it.
Most women by 24, they was packing it in.
Okay.
They packing it in. They like, okay, I had my fun, but now it's trying to pack it in. 24,
Okay.
25.
So it was odd to run into single women at 25 years old.
If they
in the
were,
90s.
they was going to be single for a long time.
That's a
they
problem.
still had single mothers.
Okay.
It wasn't every woman, but
Would it be fair to say 25 in the 90s is the equivalent to like maybe a 38-year-old today?
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
perfect.
So now
that's
women-
how society looked at her.
Yes.
Like you're a spinster now, basically,
you're a spinster.
at 25.
At 24, 25, like if you're not trying to get serious and get a relationship, you're going to miss the window
Gotcha.
What about
Okay.
men's income? Was that a big factor back then as well?
in terms of.
Like, for example, average income, 50K.
Oh yeah, nobody was making 100K out there. I mean, 100K is equivalent to 300, 400,000 today.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah, in the
Okay,
90s,
so
yeah.
if you were making 100K in the 80s or 90s, you
That's
killing
doctor
it.
money.
balling.
You
That's
doctor,
doctor money.
You doctor, lawyer.
Yeah.
You on
6
the Bill
figures in the
Cosby.
90s is doctor money.
Yeah, not many dudes were doing that. And if you were, you had a wife. You know, the women was going to not mess around with you. You had a wife and you had a family and kids.
Yeah.
They used to call them yuppies.
Okay.
Yuppies had the 100, you know,
that
they
in
had the
many
BMW.
Wow, yeah, that's a very, wow.
1980. So you made 100K. You were a yuppie. You had, especially if you were young. But I would say, dude, I'm gonna tell you, man, boomers they didn't make 100K until they were in their 50s or 60s. So they grinded it out, making 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, right? But then you go to the 2000s, right? So you get to the 2000s.
Well, before we get to the 2000s, because
Okay,
I have
stay
some
in
more
the 90s.
questions on the 90s, yeah, because
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
really break this down by decade, because this is rare where you get someone that lived through all these decades.
Yeah.
That has a red pill lens. So would you say that the game, right, the dating marketplace back then, since men had to approach,
Yep.
did women actually value those approaches more than they do now?
I think they appreciated them more because if
Okay.
you weren't approaching, the woman gets nothing. If she didn't accept an approach, she was cooked. Now you still would get shouted down and you ain't ish, you know, like that type of thing. But I think if you said something to a woman, like we used to stand on the bridge in college, you know what I mean, and we used to just stand there, you know what I mean, and the girls would just walk by all day, and everybody getting something, you know, all the comments were flowing,
Right.
And so the women knew it. They was gonna cross that bridge. So if they didn't cross that bridge, they wasn't going to be seen. But at the same time, did they like it? They might not have liked it, but you still wasn't going to get seen. See, in the 90s, there was no way for the woman to get anything outside a social circle or approaching them. Nightclub. The woman had to be seen. If she was sitting at the house in rollers,
Nobody would know.
nobody sees her. So you want a husband, you want a boyfriend, you want to be seen, you got to go outside.
Got it.
So there was a bit of impetus on the women to, because, right, they get a bunch of attention today. So they don't need to leave the house.
They don't need-
Right? They get all the validation they need. So they had to actually step outside to get attention back then in the 90s. And you're saying that they would appreciate that approach a bit more.
It was appreciated.
Versus
approaching
now.
them was the expectation.
Yeah. Versus nowadays, you know, a lot of the times if you're not a Chad, she's annoyed.
Right.
I've always said that I think modern women look at men as mosquitoes. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, get off. Like, I've got my attention for the day. I'm tired of you.
Exactly. They're annoyed by it because I think 80% of men are invisible to them.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas we would probably have sex with 80% of the women.
Absolutely.
We see. Right. So
I would argue it's now 90 to 95% of men are invisible now, I would say.
correct. And
Yeah.
some women don't either they know that and don't care or they don't realize it.
Yeah.
Also, nowadays, you know what they can do beforehand? Research. Oh, who's this guy?
That's true.
What's he about? Look at Instagram. Look at his social media. Oh, he's popping. I'll respond to his DM.
Exactly.
In
So
person,
you
it's
got-
like, who's this nigga?
Yeah, exactly. So you would have to demonstrate something of quality for her to be like, okay, maybe a car, maybe a lifestyle. So I always tell guys, you know, I'm not a big cold approach guy, especially today because of those issues. However, if I'm at the top floor or you know an area of Caesar's Palace that she knows you have to be somebody to be there, then
Lifestyle.
she's going to probably be more recipient or a better recipient of a cold approach.
Yeah, of course.
But if I'm at the if I'm at the valet, If I'm at the valet, she probably going to be, because when my
Car
cars
comes,
drove
rolls
up in the
up.
valet,
Sheesh.
now all of a sudden they open. But of course,
Yeah.
you know, without that knowledge, you're just a regular guy.
Facts.
Especially for young black men, we're all they all put us in the same category. So you ain't shit, you know, from the start.
Yeah.
Until they see something.
Understandable.
Okay, so the 90s, all right, so that's that very interesting dynamic. So the main takeaway, 24-year-old woman is basically the equivalent of a 38-year-old woman today.
Correct.
Women actually valued approach more, and they had to go outside to get anything.
Right.
And they appreciated it more.
Guys, by the way, like the video, we got almost like 4K watching,
Let's
pretty
go.
much on YouTube. And Coach, where can I find you as well, just for like?
Yeah, you can find me. Coach Greg Adams is the big main channel, and Free Agent Lifestyle is the other channel.
Cool.
So that's the
Cool.
one. Let me add one more thing on
please.
the 90s. So church was a big deal. So, you know, women
Oh.
went to church.
Hallelujah.
So they went to church. So you can find a woman. You can find a God-fearing woman in church. So, you know, it was like, you know, women had, like today, women will be hoes and go to church. Right?
Party on Saturday.
Party on Saturday,
church
be
on
in church.
Sunday.
Now, they did have that back then, but you could still find a woman. If a woman's in church, she might be intentional.
So the
to
church
find
was a
husband.
more viable way to meet a chick.
Yes.
Matchmaker.
Okay,
Yes.
really.
They will match you up.
Versus nowadays, it's a joke, but like nowadays, back then,
It's a
you're saying
joke.
it was viable.
Oh, it was expected that, you know, people more went to church back then. If you didn't, they call you a heathen. So you could find a woman in church, and a woman wasn't pretty much done. Like if she was a single mother and under 30, she could find a guy.
Okay.
Whereas today, guys ain't trying to mess with it.
Let me ask you this. Okay, how did they look at single motherhood back then in the 90s?
It was like, oh, you poor girl, you princess warrior, you do it all by yourself. That guy was
Also, they still were championing that shit.
They would be like, you got taken advantage of. Some guy did something to you to that point where that he left and left you out there hanging. So I'm gonna come in and fix that for you.
Was that only in the church or outside as well?
Outside, yeah, outside. Single mothers didn't have a negative reputation like they have today.
Because the only reason I asked that is this is a weird connection, but
Yeah.
I'll never forget Ted Bundy's mom when she was raising him.
Yeah.
She raised him in a home for women that that basically bastard children.
Right.
Because it was like something that was very shameful. Like you couldn't be out in society as
Right.
as a woman without a
That
dad.
wasn't the 90s though.
So by 90s, that's kind of not stigmatized anymore.
It had less stigma that she was out here hoeing.
Okay.
That she was out here doing something.
Yeah, because the
People
50s
were-
and the 60s, bro,
Yeah.
it was a problem. Like they didn't want them outside. Like you don't have a husband and you have a kid. They had shelters for them.
Let me tell you what. Let me tell you,
What the-
yeah,
Bro, that's how
it was.
shunned it. Yeah, they used to shun that shit, bro.
And let me tell you,
Shame
Shame,
was
yeah.
real.
Shame
Yeah.
was real.
Yeah.
So we don't have shame anymore.
Not
but
anymore.
back
So by the 90s, the shame had evaporated.
it was starting to evaporate.
Okay.
Where guys could look at a woman and say, she got 2 kids. That's a good woman still. She's in church. You know, she's focused.
Okay.
I think I can make something out of that. So dudes will make families out of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scary.
Shit. The other thing I was gonna. Promiscuity. How was it viewed in the 90s?
Listen, this is what people have to understand. Promiscuity has always been viewed bad, poorly. Just like today, we are like these 304s. But promiscuity, the reason why it hurt women back in the 90s was because women didn't have a reach like they have today. So a woman had a 10, 12-mile radius. You know, people, like the cars that we have today, we could just be like, we're going to drive 400 miles. Like, we didn't do that in the 90s, you know what I mean? That was like a trek. So, especially for a romantic relationship in the 80s and 90s, nobody's driving 300 miles, flying out here and there. An airline flight was like, 500, 600. It was expensive. So dudes weren't flying girls in. You weren't going to just fly out on a whim to go meet somebody. So your radius is right here. Your high school and the 5 rival high schools, your college campus, maybe the rival college if it's close. And that was your circle. Friendships matter. People would set people up. Hey, my friend Tony want to talk to you. That's how people got together. So that if she was a 304 with that group of people, she cooked. Cooked. So then if I date her, the odds that somebody dated her in that radius is high. Where today, the woman could go, boom, she all over here and come back to you and you don't know nothing.
To your point, nowadays, Coach, women can travel from China
Yeah.
to America
Easy.
with no type of background and
Oh,
try
you
some
know this.
bullshit.
Yeah, you know
You know
this,
what I'm
right?
saying?
Yeah, yeah.
The area codes have changed. So you're right, 100%.
Yeah. So it's just they had a limited market and they had a limited time because they only have these people right here.
So basically, women were more reluctant to engage sexually because they understood that there would be serious social consequence due to a more constrained environment?
When I was in college, I started dating this girl. My homeboy was like, "Oh, I banged her in the bushes."
Damn.
That fast, like that fast.
Damn.
She was cooked.
Yeah.
And you might have thought maybe because she went to the high school over here, oh, nobody know about her.
They don't enjoy the same anonymity.
They don't have the So now they can move in a little bit of a different space and come out here and say, "Hey, I'm holier than thou."